Hello and welcome. Devstream 77 happened, and there's kind of a lot there, some of which I'm still worried about, but mostly a lot of things got cleared up that the community has recently been really worried about, rightly so. But first thing they talked about is the War Within. So, surprising absolutely no one, that's not coming this month. That'll be sometime next month, which is fine. I would rather wait for a fully baked update than one that came out and is making the game non-functional in many ways. So, surprising no one, but it's kind of good that it's not coming this month, I would say. But let's move on to the big, important shit, which is the Void, because everyone has rightly been freaking out about the things that are going on with the Void right now, how, like, Visuals are kind of boring after you do enough of them, and there's just a lot of worry going on with, like, traces and how relics are. So they cleared up a couple of things, and they talked about some things that they're going to be adding to alleviate some problems. So first of all is the traces thing. So for Void traces, 50 per MR, maxing out at 1250 as the current max, which I think the absolute max is what? The absolute max would be just 2,000? Yeah, I guess it'd just be 2,000. Would be the absolute maximum? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Whenever we get there, we'll get there. Also, other things with Void Traces, there's no longer going to be the looter optimization, so having Nekros desecrate things, or having Loot Droid just, like, pull items out of these guys, doesn't work anymore for trace farming, or it won't be working anymore for trace farming, which is fine, because incentivizing people to only use that stuff is really, really boring, so better to have that opened up, I would say. And then being able to farm traces without a relic, they didn't exactly specify how that's going to go, but they did say we are going to be able to do it, which is a huge deal, so that we don't have to just use relics that we don't really need but would like to fucking keep in order just to go fill up our traces. So that stuff is all great. All that Void Traces stuff, that stuff's fantastic. Wonderful changes the whole fucking way down. As for this next part, which is the part that I'm personally still very worried about, and I think the community at large should be worried about, is new relics with new primes. So, the basic way this is going to work is, like, we have the unvaulting of Mag Prime, we have those relics in the system right now. So, those relics are in the system, and you can get those, and they have the mag parts on them. You can collect those, and normally what would happen with keys is that those things that you had would just convert to be the new things, and those items would no longer be available. So now you get to keep those relics, which is fine, but you won't have the relics of the new primes when they come out, which is decidedly shitty, but they talked about some things that they're going to do to try and alleviate that problem, which, given enough, like, push in, I think does alleviate the problem. There's one thing that I would personally like to see that I think would actually fix it on the whole and be like, okay, this system is totally fine. But let's go over what's confirmed. So they're going to be filling more drop tables with relics. So, like, your rotation A's and your rotation B's, like, just populate that stuff like how ODS is right now. There's tons of relics on those drop tables. You're just, like, pumping out relics if you're doing that mission type. It's really great for that. Also, making it so that any Eximus can drop relics. That's really good. As long as there are no relics that are exclusive to Eximi, that's a really good change. You're going to be getting a lot more relics from killing Eximus. Eximus Stronghold sorties, going to be really awesome for that. Hugely incentivized to go and do those. That'll be awesome. Really great. Also releasing the Relic Locations, so, like, where you can get those relics on release. So, those three things are really, really good. Now, there's one thing that I would personally like to see that I think would alleviate the, like, gotta get it right now thing, which is, if they, like, whenever the week is that they release the new Prime, for example. Say it comes out on Wednesday. From that Wednesday until the next Wednesday, you just double what the usual drop rate for relics would be, like, where it's probably all even across the board. You instead just double how common the new ones are, so that the people who are nuts, like me, have a better time getting those and farming what they want. and people who don't really care as much about farming that stuff, they miss that first week, but they'll probably have accrued a bunch of relics over time that they can then use. So I think that would make that transition actually fine. I think that would actually be totally okay. I was very, very not excited with the initial prospect of like refarming keys every time new Primes comes out, because that really, really sucks at face value. But if they do what they said to a degree enough, it'll actually end up being fine. But moving on to new Vizures. So Vizures getting boring is like an immediate problem that has already happened. So the new way this is done is that it's going to integrate more in the mission, in that terrors are going to corrupt enemies, and when you kill the enemies, you get these drops called Reactant. Collect 10 Reactant is the one that we saw. Here's the worrying part about this. Rebecca collected the 10 Reactant, and that took, like, roughly 5 minutes. And she got 8 traces. So, here's the thing with that. So 8 traces for 10 Reactant, that's not very much. There is a world where that's fine, but that world is specifically the world in which you get between, like, let's say, 6 and 14 traces for collecting the 10 Reactant. And on endless missions, you can keep collecting 10 Reactant, which is great. And then, also with that, you get the traces that your teammates get when they're collecting 10 Reactant. Then that makes tracing, like, traces, like, input into you really, really good, and incentivizes you to go with the team, which is great. If they do both of those things, then that, like, kind of amount of traces you get from the Reactant is fine. But for missions that are endless, and this would re-incentivize endless missions, of course, is like if you're doing an excavation or survival, it's like, well, every time I collect 10 Reactant from these enemies that are just here, I'm just doing the mission regularly, I will get more traces, which I want, in order to get the parts that I want. So, I'll, like, just keep going, everyone's collecting Reactant, like, doing that stuff. And just doing the mission and going farther and still getting your survival drops. Like, you'd be getting relics while getting traces while popping relics. There's potential there for that to be really, really good. And how far it ends up going, I think, will really depend on if that's fine. Because if you're expected to go through, like, a 15-minute excavation to get one part after collecting 10 Reactant, and you come away from that with 8 traces, that's an enormous nerf on what we have right now, and that's not going to work when you need 100 traces to do one relic in, like, a way that you want to get the rare. So yeah. Along with that, there's some interesting mechanics, which is that tears move and they corrupt enemies, which means that any enemy can be corrupted now. So look out for corrupted Shadow Stalker, because that might be a thing that might exist for a second. That's probably going to be super fucked. But it can also, whenever you, like, get the 10 Reactant in and it, like, reacts, then it will corrupt your equipment randomly, and it'll do a couple of different things. They said that it'll give you either unlimited energy, unlimited channeling, melee weapons, or unlimited ammo. And those effects are really powerful, and it would be really awesome to have endless missions where you're incentivized to go on them, because it's like, this is an endless mission, and there's Reactant present, and Reactant is an advantage as well as a farming thing, and it's interesting and fun and a little bit random, but random in the way that the Smita Kavat is, because it's just always good random, no matter which one you get. I don't know. There's a lot of things that can make that system really interesting. Hopefully it ends up being really good. I have really high hopes for the changes that they discussed, because they seem awesome. Moving on to more the new stuff is new and it's great things. The operator customization. So they showed some costumes. And here they are. So, I'm personally not much for the middle one. It's not really my thing. The left one is fine, and the one all the way over here, this thing right here, I need it. I need that in my life. I'm a huge sucker for, like, big, obnoxious, anime-looking-ass hoodies, and I need it. It's a thing that I need in my life. is big, like big obnoxious hoodies is all I have ever wanted out of fucking operator customization, and I didn't even know that. So, those look great. If this one doesn't make it into the game, if that one does not make it into the game, I'll be very disappointed. Although hopefully they all make them into the, they all make it into the game. That would be really nice, because they do all look fine. I just think this one over here is the best. Moving on from that though, the new Gunblade, which is this. So we got to see the animations for the new stance, and the new stance seems interesting. And I feel like at the very least, what we get out of the new stance is like a stance that is better than High Noon from what we saw, because it looked like there was a lot more rapid fire going on in this stance, which would be really, really good for the Redeemer. So hopefully the Gunblade ends up being good. Hopefully it's in the update, but we'll see. Moving on though, we've got the Arcwing camera stuff. So I know me personally, only one of these changes is the change that I needed, but I know that the other one is something that everyone has been complaining about, and it's like a thing that gives people motion sickness. So it's good that they're fixing that. So first is pulling the camera back to the old position so that like your camera is not firmly lodged within your Warframe's asshole. That's really good. I prefer that. That's great. Having the camera be far away and letting me just fucking see is awesome. It would be really, really nice if we could also maybe get that on the ground. Maybe we could get that on the ground where I could pull my FOV back just a little bit. Huh? No? Okay, fine. Again, no. Damn it. And then auto-rotation options being added, the option to disable it, the option to lessen it, tweak it how you want. That stuff will be really awesome. I personally like the auto-rotation. I don't mind it. I just wish the controls for rotating back, like, it's like crouch and A and D, I wish it was a little more precise. That's about the extent of which I would do that, though. And then just having, like, a reset button for resetting your orientation, like, really fast. Otherwise, I talked a little bit about the fusion system changes that are going to be coming in the soon TM future. These are really worrying, because I worry about the way that we currently go about farming things, or farming cores, and the way that we farm cores right now is really slow. It's really slow given the amount of, like, rank 10 mods in the game, and if they make it slower, then the incentive to farm for it will be even less than it is now, and it will be really shitty, but they want to make the system more interesting and simple. So they want to add like missions where you can build like a super core to get like your mods ranked up, and they want to just like basically just be able to break down mods into like pure energy points so you always know how much you have and all that stuff. That stuff seems like it could be good, but I worry that if we slow down our fusion core gain, that would just be the worst. Because we lost a lot of the nodes where we could easily farm rare 5 fusion cores. The only one we didn't lose is Huracan. But like Zugma, all those other ones, like they drop like flies whenever the update hit, and not having a good place to farm cores would really suck. Would really suck a lot, and then that hopefully it doesn't end up being that way. Yeah, the way they described it made me worried as opposed to hopeful. So, yeah. And then Nekros, tweaks to him. I mean, I'm sorry, tweaks. Did I say multiple? I meant tweak. His desecrate is a toggle now. It's not really what I was looking for with Nekros, personally, because like his 1 is weak without its augment. His 4 is like fine, but it's not. His 4 is pretty weak without its augment too, because if you cast his 4, you get AI allies. And the AI allies are not good at fighting. They're inherently bad at fighting, usually, actually. So unaugmented, that ability is pretty much useless to any player that's like able to actually play. His 2 is like, kind of fine, but... And his 3 is just get loot, which is really boring. So, I don't know. I wish there was more being done with Nekros, but it's unfortunate. And then the last thing they showed right at the very end was Glyphs. So basically, if you've seen Overwatch, these are tags. They're going to be a large variety of different things that you can put up, like chibis and such. So, Yeah, they're sprays. Sprays, tags, put them on the wall. It's fine. It's interesting enough. I'm excited that it's going to have clan emblems, but yeah, on the whole, it's kind of whatever. But yeah, that's Devstream 77, and hopefully these changes come in soon, and hopefully like all the like problems with the void get like totally ironed out. That would be really awesome if that could happen. Should be good. Should be. And they've said that they're going to keep iterating on it until it is good. And until the farm is just fun in general. So, I'm hopeful that it will be good. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.